Wait a minute. That's not a Pikachu. Yeah, in case it's not obvious, I've mentioned this quite a few times in Q&As and just randomly in other videos. I still play, like, not as much as I used to, but I originally started TCG journey with Yu-Gi-Oh! A game that I've been playing for almost 6 years coming up to. I started near the end of 2018, around the time Soul Fusion was being released. I've taken breaks here and there because the format has been incredibly bad, and then last year I just decided, right, I'm taking the jump over to a different trading card game with Pokemon, and I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I came back a little bit, and now I'm just kind of like weaving in between playing and not playing and all that kind of stuff. But this deck right here has brought me back a little bit, because I still don't play as much as I used to. For all the Pokemon people watching, you're probably going to have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to this kind of stuff. For people who have played Yu-Gi-Oh! You most likely understand the game, maybe a little bit. It has evolved quite a lot since back in the day. T-set pass, it's now break my board if you can't, cool, game 2. So this deck is White Forest. It was called White Woods in the OCG, but apparently Americans don't know what a woods is. It's a new deck that was released in Infinite Forbidden, the newest set for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, and I really like the look of this deck. It's not one of those kind of like, it is kind of like a break my board style deck, but it is a very generic, splashable Synchro engine that's been seen play in multiple different ways. People have been playing it pure with help from the Toy Box engine. People have been playing it with Centurion, another generic Synchro package that lets you go into level 12s. And people have been playing it with Runic, because it allows you to go into some level 10, some level 6 Synchros, while also having plethora of very annoying cards with the Runic cards that are, as I just said, very annoying to deal with. But the build that I'm playing is the Toy Centurion version, because personally, I do play Control. I have played Control decks in the past. I've played Altergeist. It's probably one of my favourite decks. I've played Shadow. That's a semi sort of Control deck with El Shaddai Winder, my personal favourite card in the game. But today I am playing Combo, which is something I normally don't play. I've been testing the deck online, like before the cards were even revealed, so this deck has gone through a lot of different resurgence. I don't know if that's the right word. It's gone through a lot of different versions. I've edited stuff multiple times, ratios have changed all the time and all over the place. I've added in stuff, then immediately taken it out. I've put in stuff, tested it, and then been like, that's cool, played with it for a bit, and I'm like, maybe it's not that cool, taken it out, replaced it. But this right here is the build that I am content with. So I'm going to stop talking, except I'm not. Don't know why I keep saying that. And instead we're just going to get straight into the profile, starting with the main deck. The extra deck will come later. So starting us off with the White Forest cards themselves, we have 3 Astellar and 3 LZ. These are basically your main starters for the deck. Astellar says that you can send a spell or trap from your hand or field to the graveyard as an ignition effect. It's not an on-summon effect. To special summon a White Forest monster from your deck. Also, if she's in the graveyard and a spell or trap is discarded to activate a monster effect, you can special summon her back from the graveyard. And then LZ has an effect that activates in the hand, where you can, again, send a spell or trap from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon herself, and then she searches for a White Forest monster. Keep in mind that that effect activates and resolves in the hand, so you activate the effect she summons and then immediately searches. It's not 2 effects. She also has an effect herself while she's in the graveyard, saying that if you special summon specifically a light spellcaster tuner to the field during your opponent's turn, you can add her back to your hand. Our spellcaster tuner lineup is all light monsters, even the non-engine. So yeah, in this build specifically, you want to max out on both of these. You could opt to play 2 of this, maybe 1. I've seen some people play 1, I've seen some people play 2. I personally play 3 and 3 because I want to ensure that I at least see one of them, if not both of them, because if one of them gets stopped, then you can use the other one and at least do something. Because this deck isn't a 1-card combo, it's a 2-card combo. Because obviously you need a spell or trap to get rid of in order to use the effect. So getting hand trapped kind of does a lot to this deck. Multiple hand traps especially are very annoying. So obviously having, this, you normal summon this, it gets ashed. You at least have this, which you know can't be ashed because it activates and resolves in the hand, so you can at least get some form of board and try and do something at least. So maxing out on these for this build is, I would say, mandatory. For the runic build, you kind of don't need to play this because you want to commit your normal summons to the tuners. So you mainly just play this for the runic build. And then for our tuners, I'm playing 2 Sylvie and 1 Rucia. I'm going to immediately say this now: if you're playing the runic build, max out on 3 and 3 because these are your normal summons for the runic build. But for this build, you kind of don't need to max out on this. I've seen some people play 3 of this. This one you don't need to max out on because this one isn't like weak, but she can just summon herself from the hand, so you don't really need to play multiples. Plus, she doesn't really do anything else compared to this one. So Sylvie says that if she is normal or special summoned, you can add a White Forest spell or trap from your deck to your hand. There is quite a selection of White Forest spells and traps, but we're only playing one of the spells and we're playing the trap. There is a new spell coming out that is pretty decent, but we'll have to see like just how it's played in Japan, if it's worth playing. Personally, I think it's worth playing as like a one-of. It basically says that you contribute I think it's just a Synchro monster you control, to target a card on the field and negate it, which is really good because it can negate spells and traps. So for example, if your opponent activates something like Evenly Matched, you can chain this, target the Evenly Matched and negate it, without having to use up any of your other negates that you might have on the field. It does get rid of a body, but we kind of leave up bodies, so like when they're used you can just get rid of them. Plus this deck puts up a lot of big monsters, so OTKing on a follow-up turn is very easy. Rucia says that if you control a White Forest monster, you can special summon her from the hand. It is an ignition effect, it's not just like a summon like Cyber Dragon, you have to activate it. And she also says you can send a spell or trap from your hand or field to the graveyard to draw 1 card. So if you've got a dead card in your hand that isn't really doing anything, then you can get rid of it and draw into possibly a hand trap or an extender or anything like that. They also both have an effect in the graveyard where you can target a White Forest Synchro monster you control or in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck and special summon them, but their effects are negated. So you can basically summon it, use a level 2, go into a level 6, and then you could bring back, or you can use another level 2, for example if you haven't used LZ you can then go into a level 8, and then you could use one of these in the graveyard to shuffle back the level 6 to special summon it, and then you can go into a level 12, or if you have another level 4 on the field you can go into an 8. Another thing to note about those effects is that they are quick effects, so you can actually use them during your opponent's turn, meaning you could Synchro summon on your opponent's turn because that's what the trap allows you to do. So you could use the trap, summon a 2 from the deck, and then you could use this, where you could chain this, obviously you would chain it to the activation, to summon it out, and then you would resolve the trap to summon the level 2, and then you can Synchro summon it to a 6. Speaking of the spells and traps, I'm playing 3 Tails and 1 Woes. So Tails says that if you control a spellcaster or illusion monster, you can search for a White Forest monster, and Woe says that you can special summon a White Forest monster from your deck, and then immediately after the effect resolves you can Synchro summon, very similar to the Centurion field spell. Another thing to note about these cards is that if they are discarded to activate a monster effect, you can set them directly from the graveyard. So not only can you get rid of them from your hand and then they immediately come back, meaning you don't waste any resources, but you can also use them to chain block your other monsters in the graveyard, or just any other effects. So for example, if you activate Stellar and you discard the Tails, you can then go Sylvie Chainlink 1 to search, Tails Engraved Chainlink 2 in order to set itself, meaning that your Sylvie is protected from something like Ash Blossom. But it isn't protected from, Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence, but it's something at least. Some builds are playing 1 of this, some builds are playing 3. Personally in this build I want to make sure that I at least am able to see Engine because this deck is a combo deck. Unlike the Runic version you would play 1 of this and 1 of this. But yeah, maxing out on this for this version is really good because it's basically just a free discard that then comes back. Plus then you can activate it because you'll control a spellcaster monster. Another thing to note is that there are other spellcaster and illusion monsters in the deck. For example, the Centurion engine, Primera is a spellcaster, so while she's on the field you can activate Tails, which is very useful to know in case you don't really draw any of your White Forest engine, but you draw Primera, you could normal summon Primera. If she gets negated you could go Tails to add, and then try and do some White Forest stuff from there. And then for probably the best engine you can play alongside, the toy engine, 1 soldier, 1 tank, not 1 soldier, 3 soldier, 1 tank, and 3 box. I was also playing 1 rotor because soldier is a warrior, but it makes you vulnerable to, you know, stuff like draws, so it wasn't really worth it. So these cards basically say that you can set them in your spell and trap zones as spells, very similar to the artifact cards. And if they are sent from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you can then special summon them. Toy Box is probably the best card that you want to draw along with a White Forest monster, because this card says that you can set 2 monsters that can be set as spells directly from your deck, or your hand, or your graveyard, or your field. So basically you can activate this and set both of these to the field. It also has another effect where you can destroy 2 cards in your spell and trap card zones, but you don't really use that. Soldier is also really good to play, that's why we're playing 3 of it, because it also says that if it's normal or special summoned, you can add Toy Box, but if you control Toy Box, you can add a level 4 light monster. May I just remind you that Lucia is a level 4 light monster, as well as Sylvie is a level 4 light monster, meaning that if you control Toy Box and you summon this, you can search for your White Forest Synchro monsters. Not Synchro monsters, the Tuna monsters. Toy Tank is also like okay, I guess. Its effect says that you contribute itself to special summon a level 6 monster from your hand, well, level 6 or lower, but if you control Toy Box, you can summon a level 6 or lower from the graveyard. So you could, you know, do some stuff, and then if you're like already used up your normal summon, you could use this effect to tribute itself, summon a Stellar from the hand, or another White Forest from the hand, and keep going from there. But yeah, this is probably the best engine to play with this deck. Max out on this card. People are playing 1 copy of this card. This card is too good because it can just bait Ash, kind of, because you could normal summon it even though you already have the Toy Box in hand. You could normal summon it, bait out an Ash, and then, you know, you've got LZ. You can just go, okay, LZ effect. You can just go, okay, activate Toy Box, set 2, LZ effect, and just go off from there. Best engine to play alongside this. If you're playing Pure, then play this. If you're playing Runic, you don't need to play this because you have so many Runic spells. And then the Centurion engine. 1 Primera, 1 Trudea, 1 Gargoyle. I'm not playing Rise Up because Gargoyle is just better, and 1 Stand-Up. I was originally playing 3 Stand-Up. It can be a little bit bricky, plus you have ways to search it anyway, and it's like, you kind of don't want to draw any of these. This is okay to draw because it means you could go into Legacia instead of Auxilla and draw a card, but 1 is perfectly fine because it means that you can play non-engine stuff. You can play more non-engine and you're not playing a bunch of cards that just end up being useless, if you know what I mean, because you could search this off of Auxilla instead of drawing it, because that draw could be something different. For those of you who don't know what these do, the field spell allows you to, on the turn it's activated, you can place a Centurion monster from your deck into the spell and trap zone as a continuous trap, and it also can't be destroyed by card effects while you control a monster in the spell and trap zone, I believe. And that's why you control a Centurion monster. And it also says that if a monster is special summoned, you can immediately, after the effect resolves, Synchro summon, very similar to the White Forest trap card. Primera says that on summon you can search. Trudea says that when she's on the field you can place herself as well as another Centurion from hand or deck into spell and trap zone. And Gargoyle says you can send a Centurion card from your field to special summon itself. All 3 of these can also be special summoned from the spell trap zone while they are being treated as continuous traps, hence stand-up. So you could go stand-up effect, discard a card to place Trudea, Trudea effect to summon herself, Trudea effect from the field to put herself and Primera effect to summon, add Gargoyle, and there you go. That's basically the line that you do with these cards, and it allows you to go into some level 12 synchros like Crimson Dragon, which can get you into King Calamity. And then for non-engine, 3 Ash, it's just generic and good. 3 Effect Veiler, you actually could cut this down to 1 or 2 because one of your synchros can actually search this, which we'll get into very soon. 3 Impermanence because it's just the best. 3 Dart Ruler, so that we can just negate everything on our opponent's board if we end up going second. Plus then we can basically build up our own board and our opponent will be behind on resources, so they're going to kind of struggle to get through ours. 3 Skill Drain, I only have 2, so this should be a 3rd. Skill Drain is really good in this deck because your White Forest monsters send a spell or trap for cost. So Skill Drain says negate all the effects of monsters on the field, but you can still activate the monster effects. So for example, you could have Skill Drain up, and then you can normal summon Astellar, or you could use Lucia to send away the Skill Drain for cost, so it's no longer on the field when the effect resolves. So then you're free to basically do your stuff. You could flip this up during your opponent's turn, stop them from playing, then when it comes around to your turn, you can get rid of it and do your stuff. And then the one reframing, because we are playing the Visas level 8, and this is just a generic negate if you have a Synchro monster, which is pretty much all we're playing in the extra deck. Speaking of which, we'll now move on to the extra deck. 1 Rusia, 1 Silvera, and 1 Diabelle for the White Forest Synchros. So Rusia is the one that can actually search for Effect Veiler. She says that if she is special summoned, or if she's Synchro summoned, one of the two, you can send a spell or trap from hand or field to the graveyard to add a White Forest card, so you can add a monster, spell or trap, or you can search for a light spellcaster, which is what Effect Veiler is. Silvera says that if she is special summoned, you can Book of Moon all of your opponent's monsters. Well, Book of Eclipse. And then Diabelle says that if she's summoned with a Tuner Synchro monster, which both of these are, you can target a spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Any spell or trap, doesn't matter. So if you end up having to discard something like an Infinite Impermanence or a Skill Drain, or maybe the Reframing, you can just summon Diabelle and get it back. These two also do give a boost to Spellcaster and Illusion Synchro monsters. It gives them a 500 attack boost. Rusia says that they can't be destroyed by card effects, and Silvera says that they can deal piercing damage, but they can also deal double piercing damage. Diabelle also has another effect very similar to SP Little Knight, where if your opponent activates an effect while she's on the field, you can discard a spell or trap, send a spell or trap, whichever one it is, and then you can summon a level 7 or lower Tuner Synchro monster from your extra deck. So if you end up getting like hand trapped into Oblivion, you could just end on this, and then when your opponent starts comboing, you can go, okay, chain, summon this, and just Book of Eclipse the board. What are they going to do? They can't really do anything, unless they're playing on chain. You don't need to play any more of these, because the tuners can, put them back into the extra deck, so you can just recycle them constantly, so you always have something to summon. Centurion stuff. 1 Legacia, 1 Auxilla, Crimson Dragon with the best card to summon, unless it gets banned, and 2 Blazer. So the Legacia says that if it's special summoned, you can draw a card, and then you can non-target destroy your opponent's monster with the highest attack. She also says that during the end phase, you can put a Centurion from your hand or graveyard into spell and trap zone. Auxilla says that on summon, you can add a Centurion card. Also says that your face-up cards in spell and trap zone can't be destroyed by card effects, so it basically protects your Centurions from being targeted and destroyed by anything. It also protects the field spell, it can protect Toy Box and everything like that. It can also protect Skill Drain, even though it will be negated, so never mind that bit. And it also has the same effect as Legacia, where during the end phase you can put a Centurion from grave or banish into the spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. Crimson Dragon says that you can target a Synchro monster you control and special summon I believe it's a Dragon Synchro monster from the extra deck that has the same level. So basically you summon this, you use the effect to target one of these, and you can summon either of these. King Calamity says that when it is special summoned, keyword being when because it can miss timing, your opponent can activate cards for the rest of the turn. So you basically just summon it and your opponent can't do anything, which is the best case scenario. However, say your opponent activates Infinite Impermanence on the summon of Crimson Dragon during their turn, because they have turn player priority, so they can activate effects first, whereas you can activate them afterwards. You can then chain Crimson Dragon and instead just summon Cosmic Blazar Dragon, which banishes itself for cost to activate one of 3 effects. You can negate a card or effect, you can negate a summon, or you can negate an attack and end the battle phase. So normally with a combo you can end on 1 Cosmic, so during your opponent's turn if they end up trying to negate this, you can chain it to summon a second one, basically putting another negate on the board, but not only that, a negate that summons itself back and is 4000 attack. If King Calamity gets banned, I think you would play the red Supernova Dragon that says when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish itself as for effect, not for cost, unlike Blazar, and you can banish all cards they control. There's another thing to note about Blazar is that because it banishes for cost, you can use it under Skill Drain because it will leave the field before its effect resolves. And then for the level 8s, you kind of have to play this because of the Fiendsmith that can burn in time, so why not burn your opponent in time? Draco, because it can do big OTK damage, it can also, banish monsters that activate their effects. So depending on the scenario, you could, banish your opponent's one of, something very important and all that kind of stuff. This to search the reframing. And then we're also playing Diabolantis with Arms of Genex. So this basically helps you from preventing from being Nibiru, basically. So you use a toy monster in the White Forest tuner to go into this. Use this effect to make itself a tuner, and then you use the 2 and itself to summon Arms of Genex, which says that when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish a monster with the same attribute from your graveyard, so light, dark, fire, wind, water, that kind of stuff. Negate the activation and destroy it, and you can use that effect once per attribute. So if you have an Ash Blossom in the graveyard and then a light and a dark, that's 3 times you can use it. Once for a fire, once for a dark, and once for a light. So it just helps you in preventing from being hand trapped really, because if your opponent activates Nibiru, you can banish a light to negate Nibiru. If they activate Effect Veiler, you can banish a light to negate it. If they activate Abystial, you can banish a dark, which debalances a dark, so you can negate that and everything like that. But most of the time you're just going to summon this. You can make this with 4 materials without needing to commit to your normal summon. LZ plus Toy Box can make this with 4 materials, no normal summon, as long as you don't get hand trapped. If this gets banned, I don't know what else to play. You may notice I'm not playing SP the Little Knight or like Chaos Engine or anything like that. I don't have them because they are very expensive cards. Obviously, if you have them, then you play them. I would probably recommend taking this out for Chaos Angel or SP, one of the Cosmic Blazars for SP or Chaos Angel, it's all up to you. But if this gets banned, more reason to go into this engine really. And that is it. That is the deck. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are you playing in this deck? What build are you playing? What ratios are you playing? How are you enjoying the deck? Do you like it? Do you think it's not that good? Do you think if Snake Eye gets banned, this deck's gonna get, see more representation? I personally think it will. Plus, it has room for more support in the future. We're getting more support in the next set, even though it's just 1 card. We're also getting the Azamina stuff, which is really good with this deck, because you can play the Diabell engine with Diabell style Black Witch. Not sure if I'm going to be playing that, because you pretty much need to remove all the Centurion stuff and just play Diabell with White Forest and, toy stuff and all that kind of stuff. Plus, we don't know what rarity those cards are going to be, so it could be a case where they're like all secret rare or, something like that. But yeah, this is different from the normal Pokemon content. Don't expect this kind of stuff like frequently. They'll maybe like once in a blue moon I'll do like another deck profile if I ever update it or something like that. But yeah, this is just something I've had in my mind for quite a bit, and I just wanted to spruce up the content a little bit from just uploading Pokemon every day. So yeah, this isn't going to be a common thing, don't worry. I'm not abandoning Pokemon is still my main TCG. I just wanted to talk about what I've been playing in Yu-Gi-Oh recently, because Yu-Gi-Oh was my origin game for trading card in general. But yeah, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to like, leave a comment, even if it just says like bruh or something. Subscribe, please. Subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. If I could hit 1,000 by the end of the year, I don't know what I would do. I would probably celebrate in some way. I still need to figure out what I would do if I hit 1,000 subscribers. That's something I'm going to have to think about. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video, which should be released later this week. Take care.